Hey.
What up, what up? Welcome to the first episode of HIZtory SHIZ, which, as you're going to find out, is going to stand for history and shit, because that's what we're about to talk about. I am MadWackJackson, and with me,
Sunray Jackson.
And we hope you enjoy this show. For the first one, conveniently, we decided to pick the topic Valentine's Day.
Where love comes from.
So, to dive right in, we're going to kind of just talk about some random pieces of history and some stuff that we found on Google that you may or may not know about that has to do with Valentine's Day.
To the audience, drop a comment right now to tell us where you think Valentine's Day comes from. What does Valentine's Day represent to you?
Absolutely. And honestly, just what do you know about this holiday before we inform you of some stuff you may or may not know? Plus, if you would be so kind, we are going to be doing these on a regular. So if you have some topics, no matter what they are, preferably history or, holiday related, drop those in the comments as well and let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about next.
Exactly. So, to bring us into this love holiday, we're going to take it all the way back to the beginning, which is a festival called Lupercalia.
Actually, before we get into Lupercalia, we have to mention some people I think some of you might have actually heard of before. I am talking about Romulus and Remus, who are from 16th century BC, you guys, before Christ, if you didn't know, Rome. And these two guys have some crazy backstory of their own. We're just going to touch on it a little bit. But basically, rumor has it that these two brothers were abandoned at an extremely young age and basically somehow ended up being raised by wolves. Okay, so that's relevant. That's why we're touching on Romulus and Remus and their abandoned childhood and being raised by wolves. This is relevant now to, as my wonderful wifey / host brought up, Lupercalia. So 16th century BC. Babe, tell us about Lupercalia.
So, to touch a little bit more on Romulus and Remus, they were actually taken in by a shepherd, and they were taken to a place that didn't have any women. It was just men. So there was a town nearby with Sabine people, and they had invited all of these people to their town for a party. Now, with this party, they actually kidnapped all the women and kept all the women and forced them to become Roman citizens. And that's how the fertility party started, which is Lupercalia. Lupercalia is called that after Lupercus, which was a fertility god.
And also, the word Luper also stems from the word wolf, which, as I mentioned, is relevant to the Romulus and Remus. So that is actually where the word Lupercalia comes from, is a mashup of Luper wolf and Lupercus for fertility god.
So a little bit more about this festival. Things that would happen is all of the men would go to a cave where they would sacrifice animals. It would be goats, sadly dogs, and they would drain all of the blood out of these animals and then cover themselves completely head to toe with this blood. And it was to, they were giving a sacrifice to their fertility god, and spreading blood all over their body was a way of honoring that god, bringing in fertility.
Another weird ritual that they did during this holiday was after they would sacrifice these animals, the men in the village would then take the pelt of said animal and soak it in milk, which was also supposedly supposed to be an offering to the gods and stimulate fertility.
And you notice the colors, blood being red, milk being white, a little bit of those Valentine Day colors you see around.
Very well could be where that came from. That is not fact, but think about it. Kind of weird.
So after this ritual in the cave, the men would come down back into town, and they would run through their town in thongs.
In
goat skin
thongs specifically, and this part's funny to me. They would run around the streets in goat skin thongs from the animals they just sacrificed, mind you. And the women would come running out of their houses and run into the streets, and the men in their thongs would whip them. Whoosh. Hey, you're sexy. Whoosh.
Pretend like this is fur.
Give me my goat thong. Now.
Oh, please, I love it.
This is not a joke. The women actually supposedly really thoroughly enjoyed this, and this is kind of how back then they would pair up.
Well, with the women, they would leave their houses to go into town in hopes to get whipped by these goat skin whips, because it would bring them luck and fertility. They had this thought that if they got whipped by it, it would make them more fertile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. Lupercalia, goat whipping, and sacrifices so far for our Valentines. Did you know? If you did, comment. Tell me if you had any idea that we were running around in goat thongs, freshly sacrificed goat thongs, whipping our women back in the 6th century, you guys. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. This is all before God was even in the picture. He didn't even exist yet.
So after this occurrence of the festival, they would all put their names, everybody's name in the town would go into a bucket or whatever, and they would draw names from this, and whoever's name you got, that would be your mate for the duration of the festival. So you would be mating with them, trying to make babies, spreading that love and stuff. And some of these couples would actually stay together for the rest of the year. They would stay together until the next festival, and even some would even get married and stay together forever.
This was actually referred to back then as drawing for lots. And yeah, basically you would put your name in like a hat. This was Valentine's Secret Santa, okay? Mm-hmm. You would put your name in a hat, and the people would come and pull a name out of the hat, but then they would wear the name on their clothing for the next week, and hopefully you would find your mate and match up. And this is actually where the term "wear your heart on your sleeve" originates from, is from the people pulling their names out of this drawing for lots and then walking around trying to find your match and mating up.
So that is what Lupercalia is. Kind of sounds like a spinky, naughty little festival.
So after Lupercalia, basically all the way up into the 1400s, and now we're in AD. So in 1494, wifey's gonna have to hopefully pronounce this name, there was a Pope
It's Pope Gelasius.
Gelasius. The reason I can't say that is because it looks absolutely nothing like it's... The spelling does not look like how it should be says. If I'm saying it by how it's spelled, his name is Glaviabus. There's no whatever she said. But Pope G comes into the picture, and this is where the holiday now turns very much, he wants to Christianize it.
He wants to turn it into purity and virginity.
Yes, so Lupercalia is out. No more of this. We believe in Christianity is here. That's no longer a thing we can do. So at this point is when Lupercalia is out, and the first mention of Saint Valentine's Day actually comes into the picture.
So Saint Valentine, there was actually 2 different kinds, and me personally, I got them a little confused, so if you will help us guide us on which one is which.
It's honestly, if you Google it, you're going to run into the same problem we did. There's really not much information, but what we did find is that there are actually 2 Valentines. These are actual people. So the one Valentine that we found the most information on is, obviously his name is Valentine, and he was a priest in the 3rd century Rome who basically defied an emperor, that emperor being Claudius II. And at this point, marriage had basically been outlawed because there was an understanding, or a theory, I guess, that if you were a man and you were married, that was going to distract you from war and doing your job. And at that, there was a lot going on back then, so we needed our men to be hyper focused on fighting for whatever we were fighting for. So marriage became outlawed. And ultimately, this Valentine was kind of going under the radar and still performing these marriages behind everyone's back, and that they found out. And unfortunately, that they took him out. That was it. They found out, and they're like, no, bro, you can't do this. That's unchristian of you. Gotta go. So that is the one first Valentine that we have.
The other Valentine that I have noted, he was born in Italy, and he died on February 14th. This one, however, he was known as a Christian bishop. He was trying to convert people to Christianity, and he was also a healer. He was known to heal people. So when people would ask him for his healing, he'd be like, okay, I can heal you, but you have to convert to Christianity first. And he lived very strictly to Christianity rites. He would heal people. And then he ended up encountering Claudius Gothius. I think I said that wrong. Gothicus.
What a badass name, though, right?
I know.
Claudius Gothicus.
But he actually tried to convert this Roman Empire to Christianity, and he was like, no, I'm not switching my faith over. So that ultimately is what killed the second Valentine. He was put to death and beheaded. And during this time, he had...
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Distraction. This is... But, he had been writing letters with his jailer's daughter. He actually had healed his jailer's daughter hearing, I believe, or it was her sight. And he was writing her a letter, and in his last letter, his farewell, he had written, he signed it, "From your Valentine." So that is how we got St. Valentine's Day, and your Valentine, and Valentine being a person.
Crazy stuff, right? So far it has not been very lovey-dovey, other than the goat thong whipping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Romans had it right. Once we switched to Christianity, it all, of course, got taken about purity and virginity and religion. But, you know, on the other side of that, witches, there's no real timeline on the witches, but witches have always done divination for Valentine's Day. Usually the night before, they would go to the church's the church's yards at midnight, and they would seek omens. They would seek for signs for who their potential loved one could be, and they would do rituals there. They also would place bay leaves and hemp seeds under their pillows to help dream of their potential Valentine. And then they would also do some spell work for people to help bring forth their Valentine.
As you can imagine, we're not going to get too deep into it, but this ultimately led to its own set of problems, because we are talking way back in the day, and I'm sure a lot of you know how witches were treated back then. So this was going on kind of behind closed doors for the women at this time, if you would. If you were to speak openly about this, you would end up in a witch trial, more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
So a little piece of history that kind of goes under the radar as far as, witches kind of had a big part in this holiday. So, mind you, here we are, just a quick reminder, we're way back in the Victorian ages still, okay, guys? Way, way long ago. But this is also kind of where all of the gifts and Valentines actually start to come into play, our current, what we know, modern day Valentines. We're in the 1700s. They were running around, and this part you are definitely going to recall if you're from our generation. They had these little things called puzzle purses. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to what we know today as the cootie catcher. You know, the little folded up note paper things.
I wish we had one.
Should have made one.
I know.
So they were called puzzle purses back in the day. And these started to circulate, and these were our first form of love notes, essentially. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily Valentine's, but our love notes. And these were gifted to someone who you fancied. You would give them your little puzzle pieces, and it would open them and have little secret messages, much like our cootie catchers do today, except not so much multiple choice. It was kind of just a little letter saying, hey,
things they liked about you.
You know, you have a nice wig. Your wooden teeth look very nice today. But basically what I'm getting at is this is where gift giving actually started to happen on the Valentine holiday. But at this point, this was still only happening for the higher status or rich people, such as emperors, kings, and queens, and royalties. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is with the royalties and stuff, with their mistress. So how they would send their mistresses gifts during Valentine's Day so that their wives wouldn't know are gloves. So these gloves, they were like embroidered, and they would have their butlers or their servers go and give these gloves to their mistress, and they would be watching them from across the party. And when the mistress would get these gloves, there were 3 different kind of indicators, 3 or 4 indicators on what she would reply with. So a twirl around the finger meant she liked the gloves. She liked the idea of being fancied. If she was to put them on, I love it. If she was to put the glove on, it would mean she was down. She was up to the challenge. Let's go. Love that. And then if she would take one look at the gloves and put them away, meant she was not interested at all. So don't even bother. Those naughty little fellas.
Yes, and you might also be a little surprised to learn that this is where we got the term love glove.
Mm-hmm.
It actually is not what we expect and refer it to as today, as commonly known as a condom. It was actually a real physical glove to kind of decide whether or not, hey, are you interested in me or not? Here's the glove. Put it on or throw it at me.
Let me watch you from clear across the ballroom.
Right. So, again, this is all only happening within our higher status ranking people. So, that, one of our fancy Roman, I believe it was one of our fancy Roman leaders at this time, took a trip over to Persia, right? Rich and fancy, I'm going to go on a fucking vacation and meet these guys. Well, while they were over there, this is where they discovered flowers and roses. Over in Persia, people were growing and, you know, just kind of, it's a thing over there. Didn't really find much detail on why or what or how this was a thing, but our royal went over to Persia, and when he came back, he brought the flowers with him, and the tradition of flowers and roses and all of this came back with him. And this is actually the very first item for Valentine's Day that became readily available for the common folk. So that's why flowers and roses are such a common gift today, because it was originated as one of the first affordable gifts for common people to start giving, and they did this as Valentine's Day gifts. And this is literally when gift giving among common folk for the holiday started happening. We can thank Persia for all those flowers. Otherwise, we wouldn't be associating roses with our holiday at all.
Thank you, Persia, because I love flowers.
We jump over to the 1700s. And this is where we meet a European named Giacomo.
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 Oh, I like the way my mouth looks when I say Giacomo. Say it.
Giacomo, yes, everybody.
Giacomo.
Well, this Giacomo fella is quite a traveler, and I guess, if you will, in suave, I guess you could say. But he is running around having all these adventures and decides, hey, I'm gonna write an autobiography. And, you know, this guy is he's out there when getting around, I mean, getting frisky. He ended up with a reputation of being quite the sexual entrepreneur, I guess you can say. So he decides to write a book about these experiences. And in this book, he mentions a secret elixir that he uses to help keep himself going, keep stamina, and it just, you know, it seems to have an effect and when you drink it, and it seems to, you know, make the ladies like you a little more. Well, come to find out that this secret elixir was actually chocolate or cocoa.
Some cocoa.
So he was running around and he stumbles upon this cocoa stuff, all right? And he's like, wait a minute, you know, I'm feeling good. This stuff is kind of gives me some little extra energy. 1700s, you guys. Energy drinks aren't around. You know, chocolate's going to give you a little bit of buzz. There's caffeine in it. So he's making these little vials, right? Little tiny little potion looking things. And he's handing this out. And this is where the explosion of chocolates enters the scene for Valentine's Day. This book, for some reason, this book just takes off and everyone is reading it and they're like, oh my gosh, I need some of this sexual elixir.
There is something I want to add about the cocoa.
Go ahead.
So chocolate during the Aztec times was very important too. And those were the cacao beans. The cacao beans. And these beans were actually very sacred to the Aztecs. And they were aphrodisiacs. So they would eat these cacao beans and start getting frisky with each other. So Aztec times as well, chocolate was very important as well.
Absolutely. So as we see, this is now we have flowers brought from Persia. Now we have our chocolate entering the mix from this super horny guy making potion. And then same time frame, this guy is making cough drops, okay? Cough drops enter the scene. Nothing to do with Valentine's Day, right? What? All right. Well, cough drops are entering, and at this point, you know, we think that they have some medical benefits to us, but 1700s, okay? They're basically sugar. And I can tell you back then, we genuinely thought sugar was medicine. Like, we really did. We would eat sugar on everything because we thought it had medical benefits. So, anyway, cough drops were coming around. This guy is eating these cough drops, and he's like, you know what? These taste just like sugar. Oh, there's not much to this. And a little light bulb goes off. And so this guy, his name is Oliver, he sees this as an opportunity to rebrand, okay? He takes this cough drop and has this meeting with some fellas, and they're like, all right, we're going to change up the recipe just a little bit. And the next thing you know, this is where Necco candies originated from. Is this guy having this brilliant idea, eating a cough drop, going, this just tastes good, I just want to eat this. So has this meeting, and now he's making his own candy. And this candy is, like I just mentioned, ended up being the birth of Necco wafers. And they did not start out with little quotes on them. This was actually years later.
When his brother came up with the idea to put messages on the candies.
Yes. And these messages, okay, they weren't like, you're hot.
They weren't like these tiny little
Be
ones.
mine. Okay, these were like full sentences. I found one. This is a shorter one, but I found one and I thought this was hilarious. These were some of the little quotes that started out on these candy hearts, okay? How long do I have to wait? Please be considerate. Sexy, right? How long do I have to wait? Please be considerate.
I guess back then that could be, romantic, but today and age, we'd be like, for the rest of your life with that pushiness.
Right? Be patient. What's that supposed to mean? But that's just one example, and not all of them were always necessarily had to even do with love. They would say some just random shit like, the sky is filled with wind and trees, and it's absolutely life stimulating.
I like to mow my yard.
I like weird shit, okay? It was not be mine. But this is where we get candy now enters our holiday traditions. And our very first candy being our lovely little chalk candy people from Necco.
I personally love those candies.
I like chalk candy, but I'm not Necco's
I
fan.
like Necco's.
Ugh.
They're like Okay. I guess if you like the taste of Tums, because I'm a weirdo. Too.
Yeah. Nope. So, okay. Now we're giving gifts. We have candy. We have roses. We have all this fun stuff happening. One little thing I want to mention in here. None of this is happening in the United States yet. These are all other countries celebrating this holiday at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've finally come to the 1800s, and this part cracks me up. I love this next little section. This is where we introduce something called vinegar Valentines.
We should bring these back.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell them about these vinegar Valentines?
Oh, God. So these vinegar Valentines, they were pretty much for people that you pissed off. Or that, like, you could have gone to the grocery store and the clerk could have given you a wrong look and you would have sent them a vinegar Valentine that said, oh, God, I wish I could remember some of the cleverness.
Dear cashier, your attitude was rude and your service was trash.
Yep, pretty much.
Nothing too terrible, right? But imagine in the 1800s receiving a letter, not mailed to you, okay, physically brought to you from a mail carrier, and you getting this little Valentine, and you open it up, and it's basically a diss.
So not only were you opening a card that wasn't very nice to you, but you also had to pay for it. So me being the person that was sending the vinegar Valentine, I would just go, I want to send this to Clarice at the shopping market. And then when she would get it, she would have to forfeit the money for her own Valentine.
This was also not only just, you would send these to your cashier, like you said, but you would also send these to your suitors as a decline, basically. And unfortunately, there are a few records of, some of these people receiving these letters and unaliving themselves after due to, just the horrible feeling, I guess.
And they weren't always very nice. They were vinegar Valentines. So it could have said, I am not interested in you because of the foul smell from your feet. That would be pretty harsh. Like, dang, I'm just going to go cut my feet off now.
Yeah, so vinegar Valentines. I agree, though. I think we should bring these back. It would be...
Who wants one?
It would suck, but it would be fun, yeah. Let's do it as a joke, you guys. Who wants a nasty Valentine's Day? Let's send each other vinegar Valentines. Only as a joke.
Yes, so don't get offended.
Right. But, on the flip side of that, maybe there'd be a lot less violence if we just sent a letter saying, hey, you're a jerk, instead of telling each other on social media or verbally yelling at each other. I don't know, just a thought. I probably am wrong. But let's do that. So here we are again. Okay, that was the 1800s. Now fast forward just 20 years. Okay, now we're at 1820. Valentine's Day cards are now a real thing. They're taking off, but in Britain, they're just flying off the shelves. These things are like, they've fully embraced the holiday over there. They're like, we're sending love to everyone. Well, what do you know? USA decides, okay, well, I guess we'll our people are interested. We don't really care, but we're going to join in the mix. At this point, we're starting to import our cards from Britain and all that type of stuff. Until, bing, one of our lovely Americans has a light bulb and decides, hey, we can do this.
We're just going to steal it.
Yeah.
Cash in.
Do this ourselves. Who needs Britain? So they decide to cut out the middlemen, and now we're making our own Valentine's Day cards. Mind you, it is not a full-blown holiday just quite yet, But we're already dipping our toes in the water. Basically, our government is like seeing British people and all these other countries making money from the holiday. And now we're like, oh, okay, well, this is kind of cool. Let's do that. So here we come to 1848, when now the USA is like, we see you. We're stealing your Valentine's Day cards. And we're going to do it too. And this is kind of where, what's her name?
She is Esther Holland, and she is known as the mother of American Valentine. So with Esther, she was actually born in 1928 in Massachusetts. Her dad had sold Valentine's cards from England. He would get imports from England and sell them. So they were authentic Valentine's Day cards from England. Well, Esther had actually gotten a Valentine from one of her dad's associates. She wasn't very fond of him, but she took this Valentine's Day card and was like, you know what? I'm going to mass produce this. I think I can make money off of this, which she did, which it went viral. This was way before viral, but it actually took off. And she had started the company that we know as New England Valentine's Day Company.
So to clarify, I said 1848. So 1848 is when the United States finally
started
embracing the holiday. And Valentine's Day cards were already a thing. They've been circulating. We're kind of dipping our toe in the water and making our own, still somewhat importing from Britain. But what did you say?
1928, after she was born.
This is when, I guess, this is when it actually really took off and became commercialized in the United States.
Thank you. The really cool thing that I liked and that I took away about Esther was that she was actually one of the very first employers to pay women good wage. She was actually one of the first ones to put them first. She always wanted to make sure that they were well taken care of financially.
Oh, a little piece of woman history for you there.
Esther, she actually did sell her company too to take care of her dad when he was dying. And then there's not very much more about Esther other than she had died in, I actually have the years written down wrong, but when she died, she actually died alone, single. So she had mass produced all of these love cards for people all around, but never found love herself. Isn't that the irony in that?
And I know a lot of you are going, who the heck is this person? Well, this is actually where not Hallmark comes from, which is, I know a lot of you are like, Valentine's Day is a Hallmark holiday, but she is actually the birth of Valentine's Day, and I guess the beginning of what you would consider Hallmark. This was not Hallmark yet, you guys. This was different. She did all this. After she passed away, the company got sold, and another few brothers, I do not remember their name, but something Hall, I'm sure. But that is when they entered the picture as a very small company and kind of took her lead, basically. Not her lead, but they took her business model, and they ultimately are what we know as today as Hallmark. So not the same, but a little backstory on how Hallmark and the Valentine's Day card part of that whole thing kind of mixes together.
So ironically enough, we can't even say it's a Hallmark holiday because they came in very last.
Yeah, they were the last to enter the show, honestly. We've already got chocolate, we've got candy, we
got sex with
had cards. Oh yeah, we got thongs and lingerie already. Like, yeah, Valentine Hallmark themselves were the last to enter the scene. But at this point, yes. Now, Valentine's Day is basically almost a worldwide celebrated holiday, and the United States has joined the mix. We jumped in and we started mass producing our holiday cards, and that is ultimately why we joined in. The United States of America celebrates Valentine's Day because profit.
Leave it to America to capitalize a holiday.
All right, so this is another little part of Valentine's Day I know a lot of you are somewhat familiar with and are like, oh, you didn't mention this. Well, I will. This is the Valentine's Day Massacre. So, again, just kind of an event that more or less happened on the holiday. Has nothing to do with the holiday itself, but I'll mention it and bring it up for you guys who are interested. On Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1929 at 10:30 a.m. in Lincoln Park, Chicago neighborhood, Illinois, 7 men were shot by 4 other men by way of machine gun. Basically, mass shooting. This attack was believed to be a hit from Al Capone and his gang. The Chicago Outfit is what they called themselves. And a few of those members doing the shooting, part of Al Capone's gang, were known as, I hope I say this right, Egan Rats. Egan, I think that's how you say it. So Al Capone's gang and these Egan Rats, basically there was just 4 of them. 2 of them happened to even be in police uniform, which is relevant to the story. I'm not sure why, but it is very prominent in the story. But basically these 4 guys went and just shot 7 people. Those 7 people happened to be members of George Bugs Moran. That name probably sounds familiar. Mm-hmm. Bugs Moran, aka part of the North Side gang. So basically, Al Capone is rumored to have, I don't even know if it's a rumor anymore, honestly. I think this is actually fact now. But Al Capone supposedly and his gang set out and put a hit on these North Side gang members over an assumption, you guys. So it was believed basically this was a retaliation over the South Side gang supposedly stealing a the heck is the word I'm looking for? A shipment of smuggled expensive, that part's important, expensive smuggled whiskey from Canada. Mind you, gangs, Al Capone, and this is all happening during the Prohibition.
Ooh, so it's a hot commodity.
Very much so. So basically, the Valentine's Day Massacre is basically 2 gangs. Long story short, we're going to sum it up as quick as we can here. 2 gangs, Al Capone's, the Chicago Outfit versus the North Side gang, fighting over smuggled alcohol. And from the outcome, as we know, those 7 people did not make it, and Al Capone and his crew, well, you know their reputation. But that is just kind of a quick recap that of what that specific Valentine's Day Massacre is about. And honestly, completely irrelevant to the holiday as we know it, but it's still a big topic when talking about Valentine's Day, so I thought I would touch on it.
Yeah, ironically enough, just because it happened on Valentine's Day, it's associated with the holiday, but if you look up any kind of history of Valentine's Day, this massacre is going to pop up.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that is kind of the basic kind of history and how we ended up from, what did I say, 600 BC to modern day Valentines.
Yeah. It's always kind of been about love and fertility and, mating and stuff like that. There was a period of time where they tried to get, taken away from that a little bit and kind of turn more into a purity holiday. But, we're humans. We do human nature things, so yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can be a little prude, so these topics get to me a little bit. I don't know what to say, but I like the history of this. I really like the Lupercalius tradition, even though it's kind of sad that they sacrifice animals. I'm glad we don't do that anymore. I'm so glad we don't sacrifice living things anymore, but
Bring back go thong whipping!
I want to whip.
Guys, don't get her a whip. Help me. So I got a few other just kind of like random Valentine's Day facts to end out this little episode for us. Did you know that as of last year, 2024, Americans spent $25.8 billion on Valentine's Day? And 2024 was our third highest ever. The number 1 and 2 other years were 2020 and 2023. As of this year, we are expected to spend over $27 billion.
That is insane.
Also, this part's crazy to me, $3 billion of that is spent on roses alone. Damn.
So if you're in the flower industry, Valentine's Day is your payday.
To break that all down, the average person, I am not average, sorry and shit. The average person spends approximately $188 a year on Valentine's Day goods. Whatever they may be, cookies, candies, dates, about approximately. This is the average person. I can only imagine what you fucking crazy people do.
I can see that. Dinner, flowers, candy, there's always an extra gift thrown in there, whether it be like a tie, a watch, a lingerie set, like.
That's what I mean. Like, that's a big number, but if you add all of those things up, that's probably a pretty cheap Valentine's Day, honestly.
Some people go all out and are like, here's a car for Valentine's Day. What?
Dude, dinner alone can be like $100 bill.
Definitely.
Some other random facts. This one I found kind of interesting. This is more so where Valentine's stems from more than anything else, believe it or not. But Valentine's Day is also when many birds actually start to match up and pair up for their mating season. So, did you know that is also a little reason why it happens to be in February? Also, a little side note I found while doing this research is that Valentine's Day, technically, the very first date we have on Lupercalia.
I forgot about this.
Actually started on February 18th. And when the priests decided to come and Christianize the holiday, they just were like, February 14th, it's close enough. But again, all correlates to the natural world, and the birds also beginning their mating season at this time. So, did you know?
It is very interesting to think about, like, the natures and the, you know, things that naturally happen, like Lupercalius being way before Christianity, the religion thing, you know, came in. Like, naturally, we just know when mating seasons happen, and not just mating seasons, but like fertility and, you know, spring, and, you know, welcoming life back into the, you know, after the cold winters. That's interesting to me.
Did you also know that the very first actual labeled Valentine's Day poem was written by a guy named Charles Duke? Could not find a date on that one. But supposedly he is the first person to write our Valentine's Day poem. Another little fun fact, threw this one in here again. This guy actually technically really has nothing much to do with the holiday itself, so how he got mixed into the whole thing, I'm not sure. But Cupid, like I said, don't know how he ended up in this holiday, really. Couldn't find much on that, but he is actually the Greek god of love known as Eros, and is the son of Aphrodite.
Oh, you know, I totally forgot about Cupid during this.
I mean, I can see how he got thrown into the mix. He is the Greek god of love, but I mean, in all of the facts and history that we just went through, you know, there was no mention of a cherub or Cupid in any way, shape, or form, and I found that to be a little interesting.
That is way interesting, because Cupid is a pretty big part of the holiday, and I can't believe I forgot about Cupid. What?
So, yeah. That is all of the research we were able to dredge up from, you know, the wonderful Google and some other sources. So, I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to bringing you some more random Hiz and Shiz.
Hiz and Shiz. And promise we'll, like, do way better in the next ones. The first one's always different.
Yep, this is our first episode. We're trying something new out. We hope you enjoy it. We're going to get a little bit more fancy and definitely try to dig in and find as much research. So, like I said, got a topic you want us to look into and research? Drop it in the comments. Let us know. Shoot us some links. Whatever. Use that hashtag, Hiz and Shiz.
Hiz and Shiz. I love that so much. Definitely. Let us know what you want to know about so that we can deep dive on it.
Right on. I hope you guys had a good time watching this show. We had a good time. Hopefully, maybe teaching you something you may or may not have known. So come check out the next episode. We will give you all the information to that coming. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Peace out.
MadWack out.
Bye.